Hi guys, in this video we're going to be looking at how to calculate fractions of a shape. Now, when it comes to fractions of a shape, it is essential that the shape is divided equally. It is only a fraction, it is only a true fraction if the shape has been equally divided. So in this case, you can see it's been divided into two. Here, it would not be equally divided, and so it would not be a true fraction. So it is only a fraction when it is divided equally. Now, before we get started, it's important to know something about how fractions are actually written. So fractions have two parts. The part on the bottom, the number on the bottom, is referred to as the denominator. Now the denominator tells us how many parts our shape has been split into. So this shape here, this rectangle, it has been split into two parts, or into halves. So our denominator would be 2 in this case. The number on top is called the numerator. The numerator tells us how many parts of that shape we are talking about. So if I shade in 1/2 here, then I would write my fraction as 1/2. So I have shaded in 1 out of the 2 halves, so my overall fraction is 1/2. Now, a half can be displayed in lots of different ways. So this shape as well has been split into a half. But it's been divided up a slightly different way. But there is still the exact same fraction here, just split up differently. Similarly, this rectangle is also a half. Each one of these 3 fractions contains the same amount of the shape. So because these shapes are all the same, this half is exactly the same amount as this half, as it is to this half. They are all the same amount of the shape, the same proportion of the shape. So for instance, if this was a cake, as people like to use as an analogy, it would be just as fair for me to have this slice of this cake here, as it would be to have this slice of cake, as it would be to have this slice of cake. So the slices would all be a slightly different shape, but it would still be the same amount of the cake. Now, taking a slightly different shape, we've now split it up into 4 parts, or quarters. So our denominator in this case is going to be 4. Now, I'm going to shade in 3 parts of this shape. So 3 of these quarters are now shaded in red. So I would display my fraction as 3/4, or 3/4. So another way of thinking about it is 3 out of 4 parts are shaded in. Now in this case, our shape has a total of 6 parts. So there are 6 parts in total. I'm just going to shade in 2 of them. So in this instance, I have 2 out of 6 parts that are shaded in. So 2/6 of my shape is shaded in this case. This shape is split into tenths. So my denominator is 10. I've now shaded in 5 of those tenths. So I'll need to write a 5 in the numerator. So the total amount of my shape shaded is 5/10. Now, the same applies no matter what the shape is. The only thing that matters is that the shape is divided equally. So here we have a circle, and this circle has again been divided in half. Now if I shade in 1/2 of this, then my fraction would be written as a half there. And it doesn't matter if the shape has been divided vertically, horizontally, diagonally, it's exactly the same amount of the shape. However, if I divide the shape unequally, so if I make that my division line, if I split the cake this way, it is no longer a half because the two parts are not equal. So I would not be writing this as a half anymore. This is not a fair fraction. So for it to be a fraction, each section must be equal to all the other sections. So here, once again, we would have a half. Now in this shape, we can see that 2/3 of the shape have been coloured in. So 2 out of 3/3 have been coloured in total. Now, just as important as being able to say how much is coloured is being able to say how much is not coloured. So if 2/3 is coloured in, that leaves 1/3 remaining. So if we have split a shape into thirds, then we know that it will take 3 of those thirds to make the full shape. So here we have quarters again. I'm going to highlight only 1/4 this time. So 1/4 of the shape is coloured in, which means that 3/4 is uncoloured. In total, the two of them add up to 4/4. 4/4 is what makes a whole shape in this case. Here we have a circle that has been split into eighths. And I will highlight 3 of those eighths. If 3/8 have been shaded in, we should be able to use our number facts to work out how many eighths are unshaded. So what do we need to add to 3 in order to make it 8? And the answer to that is 5. So 5/8 are unshaded. And we can easily see this in the shape here, that there are a total of 5 parts that are unshaded. So lastly, I'm going to give a couple of problems that explore this issue. So here's a rectangle, and I can tell you that 5/7 of this rectangle have been coloured in blue. So we know that 5/7 are blue. The remainder is white, and we're being asked what fraction of the shape is white in this case. So we know that the whole shape is made up of 7/7. So if 5 of these 7s are blue, we should be able to see how many 7s must be remaining that are white. So 5 plus what equals 7 is basically our question here. And the answer then is that there are 2 7s that are white. So 5 7s plus 2 7s equals the whole shape, 7 7s. So lastly, one final example. In this case, the shape has been split into tenths. Now, we're not actually seeing the tenths, but you'll just have to take my word for it. This is 7/10 of the shape. Now, 7/10 of it are blue. What fraction is white? Again, we should be able to use our number facts. 7 out of 10 of them are blue. This amount are white. And using our number facts, we should be able to tell that 7 plus 3 is what equals 10, so it has to be 3/10 that are white. So in this video, we've learned that, first of all, fractions must be split equally. It is only a fraction if the shape has been divided equally. Fractions can be written as a numerator on the top and a denominator on the bottom. The denominator says how many parts the shape has been split into in total. So in this case, it's been split into 10. And the numerator says how many parts we are actually talking about, how many parts are shaded. In this case, 7. We also talked about how to work out how many parts are not shaded by figuring out how much we need to add on to the numerator to get it to match the denominator. So in this case, we need to add 3 to the numerator to get